Just 6 days until what could be a historic presidential debate. It will be, don't you think? And this Sunday night, we will have a special edition of the Kelly File, live with a complete preview of what to expect when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump face off for the first time at Hofstra. I'm looking forward to this. Then, after the debate on Monday night, tune into the live Kelly File at 11 o'clock, right after the debates, with a complete wrap-up and analysis you won't see anywhere else with all your favorite guests. And here's why we think it's going to be such a big deal. In just the last week, Larry Sabato of the University of Virginia made some major changes to his otherwise unchangeable prediction map, which he hasn't touched in months, moving 12 states over further to the right, including 2 outright flips. Ohio and Iowa went from leaning Democrat to leaning Republican. Joining me now, Larry Sabato, who's got to be exhausted at this point. He's a director of the UVA Center for Politics. So that's huge, 12 states. You haven't moved anything in that map, and now it's a whole new ballgame.
And here's why, Megan. We were led by the data to do this. Hillary Clinton had maintained leads that were either small or large in all of those states really since the summertime. And then we all know it was expanded after the convention, but she's had a couple of rotten weeks. And either she's fallen back, depending on the state, or Donald Trump has gone up, or some people think Democrats just don't want to respond to the polls. But very clearly, the polls had changed, and they changed enough in Ohio to lean it to Trump, and Iowa, just about everybody agrees that is Trump's strongest swing state, so we lean that to Trump as well. But I think the real story here is Florida, North Carolina, and Nevada. In all of those states, you've either had very contradictory polls or polls that were dead tied, and so toss-up is the right rating for them.
And there was a poll out just today from Monmouth putting her up 5 points over Trump in Florida. But that's, they've been all over the place. Now, one thing we read this week was that the polls taken this week show she's doing better than she was doing last week. And so you tell me, whether that means she's rebounding, she's steadying the ship, or what it means.
I think probably it's returning to the prior norm, except for one big thing, Megan, that you mentioned in this segment. 100 million people are going to watch this debate on Monday night, more than have watched any debate in American history. So that's a reset button, potentially, depending on what happens, and there isn't a soul in the country who knows what's going to happen. Well,
and that's the thing, is it's like, maybe it'll be exciting. It would be exciting just to watch, but query what the candidates will do under that kind of pressure. They're only human beings, They might not want to throw any real hard punches because they don't want to upset what is a tight race. Any predictions before I let you go?
I think basically the supporters of both will be strengthened, and people mainly tune into debates to cheer for their side. But never, ever underestimate the power of any candidate to commit a terrible gaffe that does cause the numbers to shift.
Well, that's kind of why we watch. It's like, watching the ice skating at the Olympics. What? That isn't nice. Great to see you, Larry. Well,
thanks, Megan.
Joining us now with more, Trump campaign national spokesperson Katrina Pearson and DNC committee member and Clinton supporter Robert Zimmerman. Good to see you.
Good evening.
So let me just start with you on this, Robert. Do you admit she had terrible 2 weeks?
No, she didn't have terrible 2 weeks.
She didn't?
Look,
12
reality
states.
Is, look,
12 Larry Sabato states just got moved further to the right.
Excuse me. Let me point out to you that Larry Sabato, in his report with his new map, pointed out that Hillary Clinton certainly has the advantage of winning the election over Donald Trump. More paths to get to.
But
more
2
paths
weeks,
to get to 270.
Monday, he was on this program saying she's looking great. Trump's in big trouble. And because the polling from her collapse and basket full of deplorables hadn't caught up.
Well, first of all, there wasn't a collapse. Let's also understand, Megan, I mean, I don't want to disappoint you, but you should be, in fact, maybe this will put your mind at ease, but Hillary Clinton in today's national poll, NBC's national poll, is up by 5 percentage points. But
now, let me stop you right there. As you well know, it isn't about my personal feelings.
I know that.
It's about the facts.
And the facts are, Megan, that even if you you take the worst projection. You assume that Hillary Clinton has 16 of the standard blue states for 191 electoral votes. That's lower than anyone's projecting. The battleground states in question, according to 538.com and others, give her a 70% chance of winning those states.
Okay. 538, with all due respect to Nate Silver, has been schizophrenic this election. They nailed it with Obama last time around. They've been, with all due respect, all over the place. You believe one day, the next day, completely the reverse. Let me get Katrina in here.
Okay.
Katrina, your candidate has had boatloads full of trouble, right, since he launched this campaign. But you tell me whether this has been the best 8-10 day period of the entire run for him.
Well, Megyn, I think this has been a fantastic time period for Mr. Trump. I mean, we keep wanting to remind people that Hillary Clinton has spent tens of millions of dollars in many of these states, and some that Larry didn't mention, like Colorado, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Look at Virginia and Maine, for crying out loud. Mr. Trump is doing extremely well, which is exactly
Virginia was typically red, but
many of these models have shifted.
But let me ask you this. So understanding that he had this great time, what does that mean for his debate strategy? Because even though he's had a great 10 days, he's had like a year and a half of controversy preceding it.
Well, look, he's going to prepare the way Mr. Trump does. He's absolutely committed to going out there and campaigning in all of these states for all voters, something we haven't seen for a Republican candidate in a very long time. And he is ready to go up against Hillary Clinton. And as we know, Hillary Clinton does have a record of failure as Secretary of State, particularly when it comes to the hot topics that many people are concerned about.
Katrina,
like
I think you did your analysis.
Like the economy and like trade.
Excuse me, Katrina.
Let Robert get in here. Someone that's going to get up there and actually talk to the American public about what he wants to do. That's been extremely different
let him make his point,
and
then I'll give you the floor back. Go
Katrina,
ahead,
take a breath. Here's the bottom line. Katrina, I think you learned your political analysis at Trump University, because what we've seen in this election...
You're the rhapsodic one, George.
First of all, it's Robert. You've got a fixation on George Zimmerman, which says something else. The other point is, what makes this election so unique is you see an unprecedented number of leading Republican experts in homeland security, in fighting terrorism, in our military, including now President George Herbert Walker Bush, now standing up and supporting Hillary Clinton because they regard Donald Trump as reckless, dangerous, and an incompetent neophyte.
What do you make in particular, because news broke overnight that the former president, George H.W. Bush, is planning to vote for Hillary Clinton, Katrina?
Well, look, I think everyone is entitled to support whomever they want. There are many Americans who applaud the Bushes and respect their service.
Not Donald Trump, who attacked them and maligned them.
Some of the Bushes are going to be supporting. If it is true that some of the Bushes are going to be supporting Hillary Clinton, then I think that really offers vindication for a lot of the Tea Party goers who felt like Republicans were starting to govern as Democrats.
How about the generals who are supporting? How about the generals who are stepping up and supporting Hillary Clinton over George Bush?
The establishment is going to stick with the establishment. And what does it say when you have Republicans in a record number turn out for Donald Trump, and you have former leaders of the party just essentially slap them in the face? At the same time, Megyn, everyone's going to have to choose who best suits their values, and if Hillary Clinton represents George Bush's values, then that's his prerogative.
Well, clearly, Vladimir Putin represents
she was thinking of George
Bush's
H.W. Bush, Robert. She wasn't thinking of George Zimmerman. So it's great to see you both. I got to leave it at that.
Okay.
I have to talk about Brangelina, which I don't think Katrina and Robert want to discuss.
From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
It is now 49 days to the election. 49? Remember we were saying that yesterday? I can't keep up. Less than a week to what could become one of the most watched presidential debates in history. It will be, right? Don't you think it's going to be number one? I think it's going to be number one. And about 72 hours since terror attacks rocked New York City and New Jersey. Against that backdrop, President Obama today went to the United Nations, just blocks away from where 31 people were wounded, calling for the world to take in more refugees, then suggesting that critics of his plan, critics like Donald Trump, are actually helping the terrorists.
If we were to turn refugees away simply because of their background or religion, or, for example, because they are Muslim, then we would be reinforcing terrorist propaganda that nations like my own are somehow opposed to Islam. This crisis is a test of our common humanity. Whether we give in to suspicion and fear and build walls, or whether we see ourselves in another. To slam the door in the face of these families would betray our deepest values.
Not only did the president use the United Nations for what sounded an awful lot like a campaign speech, news also dropped today of an unprecedented campaign blitz by Mr. Obama on behalf of Hillary Clinton, with the president reportedly prepared to devote at least 1 or 2 days a week to getting her elected between now and November 8th. Joining us now, Mark Thiessen, a Fox News contributor and a scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, and Roland Martin, who's host and managing editor of News One Now on TV One. Great to see you both.
Glad to be here.
Good to see you, Megan.
So let's just talk about the refugee situation, because this is becoming bigger and bigger, and the immigration policies of the two candidates. The president today coming out and saying we need more refugees to come into the country, and Hillary Clinton saying, okay, they'll be subjected, however, to tough vetting. This is how she put it, Mark. Stand by.
So I am absolutely in favor of, and have long been an advocate for, tough vetting, for making sure that we don't let people into this country, and not just people who come here to settle, but we need a better visa system.
Your thoughts on that?
She was in charge of the visa system. She was Secretary of State for the first 3 years of the Obama administration. Why didn't she give us a better visa system when she had the chance, when she was in charge of the department that is in charge of issuing visas? I mean, this is the problem. Hillary Clinton both wants to run away from Barack Obama and wants to tie herself at the hip with him. They're going to be campaigning together twice a week for the rest of the up until Election Day. So she wants his support, but she also is going to be tied to his record. Well, what is his record? His record is, we just found out that the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General found out that over 1,800 people who were supposed to be deported because they posed a national security risk were given U.S. citizenship instead.
That's insane.
They confused the deportation order with a passport application. They couldn't tell the difference. This is our vetting system right now. And Hillary Clinton looks at that and says, let's increase the number of Syrian refugees by 500%. She's not doubling down on Obama's policies. She's quintupling down on Obama's policies. This is not going to do her well in the election coming up.
Roland, that number, that hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, but it's true. At least 1,811 immigrants who were supposed to be deported because they posed these national security threats instead were given citizenship.
Well, when you also have a country where you have people like when you had individual members of Congress who were on the no-fly list, it's no shock that we have bureaucratic screw-ups. Those are things that actually
That's a big one.
No, it is a big one. It is a big one. And my point is, that's why you also are to fix those things.
But
now,
you see, as a political matter, why it puts her in a difficult position to say, let's quintuple the number of refugees coming in.
Well, but again, first of all, as Americans, it's a little difficult for us to ask others around the world to do something that we're unwilling to do. Now, when we also made the point about her being over the visa program, remember, she also was working for a president. Mark, you worked for a president. You just simply couldn't do something on your own without that being the approval of the president of the United States. The bottom line is
Secretary of State.
No. I understand you. I understand what you weren't, but the reality is she still had a boss like you had a boss. That is the president of the United States. The thing here is this here. I don't believe that somehow the refugee policy is going to be somehow that major in striking her down. There are people who don't like the president, who don't like her already. And so I don't think all of a sudden they're going to say, I hate her even more so. But I do believe you do have Americans out there who understand from a humanitarian perspective where we are as a country.
What do you make of it, Mark? Because it's extraordinary to see a sitting president devote, 2 days of the work week to campaigning for someone running for office. I don't know if is he going to get a dock and pay? He's not really doing the people's business 2 out of the 5 working days.
Well, part of his job, I guess, is preserving his legacy, and he realizes that if Donald Trump is elected, it's going to be a big blow to his legacy. His legacy depends on Hillary Clinton getting elected, and she understands that she's running on his legacy. Look, after an 8-year term in office, the choice in election is change or more of the same. She is the candidate of more of the same. She's the candidate of what's happening in Syria right now. It was on her watch and Obama's watch. They did nothing while 500,000 people were massacred in that country and had no safe zone to flee the violence. And so the refugee crisis was created on their watch. And now they're coming out and saying, you're immoral for not taking more refugees. You created the refugee crisis.
On the other hand, though, Roland, if her legacy is his, he's got a 52% approval rating right now. It's been above that in recent days. And actually, the latest polls, we had this discussion last night, the latest polls on terror show her ahead of Donald Trump in all but I think one poll. She is outpolling him on who they trust more to handle terror.
I can guarantee you this. If Mark's former boss actually had a high approval rating, Republicans would not have been running from him in 2008. This is the reality of when you are a strong incumbent. If Al Gore was not being an idiot and not having former President Bill Clinton campaign for him, he likely would have won the presidency. All he had to do was win his home state of Tennessee or win Arkansas, and he wins the presidency. And so if you're a political party, you want a popular president. You want a president on the campaign. No, excuse me, Mark. I guarantee you, when you have approval rating above 50% and with the highest in years, trust me, you want that. And again, if Bush had comparable numbers in 2008, trust me, Republicans would have loved to have the president on the campaign trail.
All right,
so
I gotta leave it there.
You got to suck it up there, Mark. He's popular.
I gotta go. Great to see you both. Well, at least 3 well-respected election models this week changed in favor of Trump. Larry Sabato runs one of them, the most respected, I'd say, and he is next on what is happening here. Plus,